Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, how are you, Michelle?
Fine. How are you?
Great.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Plungy Pools of Australia. For homeowners, architects, and developers, it's never been easier to include a premium concrete pool for your designs. Unlike a traditional pool, you know exactly what to expect from our precast pool solutions. With pre-engineered specifications and a BIM content library, you can specify a plungy into your project with ease. Our precast pools won't limit your design options. You can enjoy the efficiency of a prefabricated solution and customize the pool finish to align with your project. Thank you to Plungy Pools. So I'm here with Suzanne. I'm trying to get her bio up. Is it
Bosanquet, very French, but
Bosanquet.
coming from Australia, we're all immigrants here.
So are we. So I'm here with Suzanne Bosanquet, RAIA, multi-faceted professional known for her roles as an architect, business owner, sessional educator, artist, and community leader. Suzanne is also mother to 4 young men. With an architectural career spanning since 1995 and is currently enjoying sole practice focusing on considering and crafted residences with a few select commercial fit-outs as well. That was the one that I was like saying, fit-outs. She has a broad architectural portfolio that spans close to 30 years that includes local, national, and international award-winning projects. The scale and breadth of the portfolio range from international art installations, luxury versus community housing, and large sporting facilities, including involvement with 4 Olympic stadiums. Her work has been published widely across various media formats. In addition to her architectural achievements, Suzanne has been honored with numerous community and business awards, underscoring her commitment to social impact and enterprise. She has been recognized with prestigious accolades such as the Australian Government Award for Community and Business Partnership, the Griffith Australia Day Award, and as a finalist in the Women in Business Australia Awards. Currently, she holds the position of State President of Women Chiefs of Enterprise International, a significant affiliate within the global network of women entrepreneurs. Her leadership in this capacity underscores her commitment to empowering and promoting women-led businesses on a global scale. She was on the first series of Shark Tank Australia for a young men's all-natural deodorant. In 2017, she founded Little Architects in Australia, which delivers built environment education and creative workshops for families and children, including sports holiday clinics. Notably, she currently serves as the Australian Institute of Architects representative on the International Union of Architects Architecture Children Work Program, which aims to raise awareness of the importance of
built environment education.
Yes. And which aims to raise awareness of the importance of built environment education. Thank you. In particular to children who are our future and will determine how it is shaped. Her passion for education extends to her role as a national and state examiner for the Architects Accreditation Council of Australia. Been there, done that. Yes. Suzanne also serves as a quasi-judicial role representing the state government in development tribunals, influencing decisions critical to community development. Notably, she co-founded SONA, Student Organized Network of Architecture, in the 90s, advocating for student pay rights and professional recognition within the architectural community. Thank you so much, Suzanne. And I met Suzanne last year at Modernism Week. It's Modernism Week is going on right now in Palm Springs. We met last year at the Lautner compound. Neither of us are there this year, but maybe we'll talk about it, about the wonderful Lautner compound.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I think that was my highlight of going to the States and getting to Palm Springs, particularly for Modernism Week. But yeah, getting to see the Lautner compound and seeing his sort of idea of the hotel that never eventuated because they rerouted that highway. It's quite sad, but it was extraordinary because before that I'd been to Taliesin West, Frank Lloyd Wright's thing. So it was a lovely segue from, from the master to the pupil, I guess.
Yeah. Though there's like many similarities. I'm a volunteer over at Taliesin West. I've been there several times, but there are a lot of similarities definitely between those two, with the natural rock and the glass, and kind of like nestled in the views that are I find kind of very focused.
Yeah, and I think that whole response to environment too, of being in the desert and sand and all of those things, it was really, I don't have to deal with that in Australia, being in a coastal area. We don't have to deal with sand storms and, dry, arid things. It's all rain and cyclones here.
Sand? Don't you have sand?
We have sand, it's sinking. But, it's very different. You've got arid, we've got, tropical, subtropical environment. But still those considerations of light and ventilation, hugely important. And they bring in a lot of the sand to the beaches. They don't tell people that, but they do bring it in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah. So why were you in the United States last year? Because was it some grant or something that you? No. Okay. I was there. A client wanted me to go see the houses in Palm Springs. So I was there, which was amazing, due to a wonderful client. Yeah. So I sort of added on. No. So the poor client ended up having spinal surgery while we were in Palm Springs. And that was sort of emergency. So I was unable. So I was there basically, on my own. At my own volition. So no, it was wonderful, and wonderful to experience Modernism Week. It was amazing. So, seeing the Frey house was extraordinary. And I think seeing that build up also on a rocky environment, integrated, and something so simple, and the Kaufman house, it was just amazing. So I was very privileged and honoured to be there for that. Yeah. And a great milestone in my career too, I think, to be there. Yeah. Especially like a client, having you, that's amazing. I mean, I have a client that likes the houses, but it's only a 2-hour, and he hasn't even asked me if I'll pay for you to stay up in Palm Springs. He just figures you've been to Palm Springs, here's a book, that's all you need. So that's my the cocoon and the butterfly. I have this project. It's the cocoon and the butterfly, and I can't really talk about it because we're not getting a building permit for the house. So it's in the middle of nowhere. So hopefully the building department never finds out. But you never know. Oh, but I think that's the whole thing, isn't it? About having a concept and then doing it, but actually getting it built and within budget. It's really quite a skill.
Yeah, and I mean it's small. It's a small house because it's just his weekend house. It's going to be his weekend house. He has a house here in town, so this is just his playhouse. In the middle of nowhere. So, what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
Well, interesting, Michelle. I grew up on a cane farm in far north Queensland. So let's say architecture wasn't a dominant feature of my childhood. It was sheds. Which I think sort of speaks highly probably of Australian architecture being very utilitarian, and the Glen Murcutt, touch the earth lightly, and corrugated iron. So I think my first real thing of architecture was a friend from school. Her parents employed architects, and they were doctors. And I remember seeing the house when it had been completed, and their whole thing was a 3-story aquarium in the middle of a stairwell. And I went, wow, this is what you can do? You don't have to live in a shed or a basic house. You can actually put an aquarium that's 3 stories high and have reef fish. This is amazing. So I think that was my first real exposure of possibly what architects can do, or what money can do. And I think having dreams, they're making your dreams a reality. Yeah.
Yeah. My gynecologist had my OBGYN had a fish tank. He had two fish tanks in there, and then they were bought out by this other one, and they have a different office. And I'm like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to it's like he's not there. There's no fish tanks. It's like I don't want to go there anymore.
Well, it's maintenance too with fish tanks. Like, I don't think people realize when they have these dreams that, probably are childhood dreams. Yeah.
So, what are three classic buildings that you like and why?
Okay. So this was I really like these questions because it made me really think about it. So I've done a different kind of approach. So whilst I was at University of Queensland, we had this amazing lecturer and spoke very highly of Japanese architecture, which I, love, and having been to Japan, when I did go to Japan, I went and saw the Grand Shrine of Issei. And I'm going to say that's my first one, because what's so important about that, and I don't know if you know about the Grand Shrine of Issei. So it's a Shinto shrine. And Shintoism, the religion, is Japanese ancient faith, and it's all about sort of worship of kami, which is the divine spirits of nature. So it's all about embracing the environment. So there's no sort of God. It's all about the elements. So the Issei Shrine is basically gets demolished and rebuilt every 20 years, I think it is. And this has been happening since 600 AD. So what happens is this whole ritual about selecting the trees, and it comes down and then they process it. And, the village comes together and they craft it, put it together, and then it's recycled. And another one, while one is built, another one is being replicated. So it's this whole process of building and involving people and nature and a repetitiveness. And I guess it's also about non-permanence of things. So we have this whole idea of a building is permanent and about longevity. But I love that this is story of being part of people, about culture and about process of renewal and the embracing of, the growing of the trees, like understanding where those trees have come from, putting it into building. And it's all mortise and tenon, the whole craft of putting it all together like a jigsaw, all the old twine and rope, and all those connections of Japanese architecture is incredible because it's all considered, it all interlocks, it's all of certain proportions. So for me, that's been quite impactful, I think, in understanding that process of culture, heritage, and the importance of people in that what we make, and that architecture is more than just a built form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
that's great. Yeah. And nobody's ever brought that up as one of their favorites.
Yeah. Well, I love that they even bless the timber, right? It's purified, but it's that whole thing where we struggle today about, sustainability, embodied energy. But it's, if it'd been doing this for years, we, it just puts a whole lot of questions on things today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So what is it recycled into? What is
the Torii gates? So the Torii gates are sort of like these they're gatehouses, I guess, that you pass through. And then after a period of time, that timber then gets given to other little prefectures that build their own shrines from that, because this is the grand shrine. So this is a big, important shrine. And then obviously little other shrines get built and recycle from the recycled timber. So it's an ongoing process.
Those were the little ones that you were talking about. Okay. Yeah. 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 And then what's your second?
Oh, the second one. So the second one, what was interesting about being in the States and seeing the Lautner compound and about the modernism period and their whole thing about the open plan, right? So I went to France, would have been 2017. I was over there for an art project, it was all World War One or two stuff. And I decided I'd throw in a Le Corbusier, tour. So I started this tour of going to Ronchamp, which we all sort of know is their modernism brutalist church. And it was probably Le Corbusier's only freeform thing. That's not my building. I was fortunate enough to go to the La Tourette convent which is outside Lyon, which is basically his last building that he did in Europe in the 60s, which culminated on bringing all of his little ideas together. And what the interesting thing was that I only found out through a bit of research recently was that the father who commissioned the Ronchon actually commissioned Le Corbusier's last job in Europe as well. So I didn't know that before. So the La Tourette convent is for the Dominican Order of Priory, and it's basically the whole brief was to deliver a convent, which is a church and a library and those things, a seminary, for silent monks, 100 silent monks. So it was like a silent retreat for silent hearts too. And it's brutalist, and such a contrast from Ronchon, because Tourette is concrete rectangles stuck in the landscape. Some of it's on posts and cantilevers out, but it's a complete interior experience. So it's all about your senses and all about that transcendence. And I think for me, it talks about how the architect's role, we're a poet of space, and how we use light to illuminate. And I think what has been done so well in all of that, and I guess where you do culminate your career, is how you deliver your life knowledge into one singular building. So the magical parts of it is that you descend down into the chapel via a ramp. And when the big pivot door opens, because everything's been denuded, there is it's like stark brutalism concrete with lights, and he uses his shafts. So you open up this big door, and the big pivot door, which is center balanced in the middle of the big opening, then crosses with this red skylight, which is horizontal, and that forms the cross.
Okay.
And that is it. So you descend towards the light, and then you walk into the space. Everything's curated, and it's just these big sort of light turrets that come down. And then the bottom part of it is like big round. So all those colours of red, blue, yellow, primary colours dropping down. The glazing is sort of all, because I guess Corb was all about his modular format of the hand to the body, and everything was proportioned. So that whole thing of transition of walking down is considered. So many steps take you to here. You walk this and everything in that human form, and then multiplied up in some perspective. So I think to see all of that come together and then stripping away everything and coming back to your senses and drama, and the architecture creating the drama through light. And that was it. So that makes sense with the silent monk, that you have this sort of transcendental experience while you're there of all those things. So, yeah, another thing about, people, place, purpose, and poetry. And I love that we are poets of space. And I think that's, if it's done well, and doing houses about that whole thing of getting out of the car, or how do you arrive on a site? How do you take someone through a site? And I think whenever I'm doing houses too, it's sort of like, what am I looking at? Like, I get to this point, how do I feel? Where is the light? Where's the view? And then I want you to pivot here, but what's making you pivot here? And I think some of those Ando buildings are great about following the light. You don't need to have signs. If architecture is done well, you should be able to innately find your way through a building without being directed with a sign. Yeah.
It's funny because, I can remember reading parts of the Poetics of Space in college, but then recently one of the moms in Mothers in Architecture group was like giving away a bunch of books. And that was one of the books that she had. And she said, when I said, oh yeah, I'll take this one, and Poetics of Space was always, so it's like, it's sitting there. I haven't started to read it again because I have stacks of books that I don't have any time to read, as I'm sure you have to say, but I'm going to pick it up now, and I'll just read a few pages of it just to, to celebrate the fact that you brought that up for this.
I think it's a good reminder for all of us to go back to the basics sometimes, and remind us when we're not dealing with budgets and just, where the pantry's going, or, showers. Do you like a shower from coming on top of your head, or do you like the water coming out from the wall? There's just those really basic things in life that, you can't get past them when you're doing houses.
And this whole kind of I know that, everybody now they're like, oh, we don't need a bathtub. And I'm like, really? You don't want a bathtub at all? Like, have we become like that devoid of like the actual ritual of taking a bath or anything about a bath that nobody wants? Like, nobody even has time for a bath anymore. I mean, I know that I don't like. It used to be the only place that I would take a bath was at my parents' house. Like, we would go over there to we'd go to the Midwest where they were, where they're living now. And she had, my mom had a big tub, and then she would be with the kids, and then I would just take a bath. And then now, like, when I go to a hotel, I'll take a bath and things. So it's like when I get to a hotel and I see that there's only a shower, I'm like, what? I wanted a bathtub because I just wanted, this is the only time that I can really relax. And now all I have is a shower. It's
so true. I think I recently sold my house that I built for myself and my family, and the bath was such a
wonderful
huge thing. But I did an outdoor bathroom, which sort of didn't go down so well with a lot of the general public, right? Because they're like, where are the walls? And I'm like, there's green. Like, and we had a beautiful like jasmine like vine growing up, a Stephanovus, and it would bloom twice a year. It was extraordinary. I had open walls, and I used to say it was like having a moonlit bath, which it was, because people go, you turn your lights on. I went, I don't need the lights here. I'm not an exhibitionist. It's just that I like to be connected, and it's an experience. And the funniest thing, I think, when I got my plumbing inspection done for the place, the council guy comes around and he goes, oh my God, I love this. I'm like, oh wow, you've got a heart. And I shouldn't say that. And he actually stood there and goes, I love the idea that beyond water running on my body when I'm having a shower, that I'm being washed with sunlight. Oh. And I loved that. But it was just this beautiful thing that, just the plumbing inspector got it about. It's more about connecting with nature and seeing that versus putting yourself in a room like a hotel room. That's all. There's no openings, or, there's no connection, and you may as well just be, and you're standing underneath the fluorescent light, and there's no joy in that. Where's essential pleasures in, and I think one of the other extraordinary things in that bathroom was having
they're
that
getting
open
much
skylight.
better with they're getting much better with lighting in hotels, at least like the newer one, the one that we stayed at for AIA Cran in Salt Lake City. It was new, and it was a Marriott hotel, of course, because we were in Salt Lake City. But there was like lighting, just low lighting in the, there were several different lighting sources in the bathroom, which there was also a tub in that one. So I was able but also that you didn't have to turn the lights on in the middle of the night, right? There were just lights in the bathroom, which I think is, fantastic.
Yeah, little, sensory lights, so you don't have to turn on the lights and blind yourself in the middle of the night. And it's important to have considered lighting.
Yeah. And then I'm going to have the contractor run a faucet out to the back. I was going to I have like a feed tub, and I was going to put it on my deck, but now I'm going to put it on the back side of the addition, because the deck obviously has the table and everything there. So I'm like, no, I'm going to put it on the back side where, where the trees are and everything. That's where I'm going to put it. And then I'll have my feed tub there, because I don't have any room for a plungy pool. Right. So
not all of us have a.
I've only got my feed tub. That's like, but that's fine. As long as I can run hot and cold water over there. The first time I was like heating up the water on the stove, bringing it out to the feed tub. Now I've got it planned out. This is what I'm going to have for my lowbrow feed tub.
But it's important because it is so sensual. The experiences of like the rain falling on your skin while you're in the bar, like outside, like those things you can't replace. And I think that is the power of what we do. is sort of making sort of mundane, ordinary spaces extraordinary.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah. Did you see the Quonset Hut one or listen to the Quonset Hut podcast with Earl
No,
Parsons?
I'll
He's
have to
he's
go
in
back and
Prescott,
find it.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Prescott, Arizona, but they also they have they call it the Quompound, QUOMPOUND. And so and they have a bunch of Quonset huts up there and they have an outdoor shower. So when I stayed over there, I have that. So I have photos of his, but it's just like a total basic, right? It's just a total basic, like, the handles on it, red and blue handles
Yes.
for hot and cold. And it's just outside. And then of course, you have to be very um
Sorry.
efficient with the water because it's all pumped there, and they bring the water in and put them in these big tanks, and then you have to ration your water from that you use while you're there. So it's just a very short shower, just a few minutes. Yeah, but it is outdoors. So was that three? Did you give me three or not?
No, so there's
No, okay.
no one more, and I was going to
Okay.
throw up the first architect I worked with Lindsay and Kerry Clare, um, who are extraordinary, and they were in small practice, husband and wife. They had 5 children, and one of the first houses I went to, because I think as a student you sort of get sent out on these assignments. So I went out with the photographer to get the photos, and they won the Australian House of the Year award with this house, and it was the Hammond House. Tiny little house, and it was an extraordinary example of like 1 bedroom, all sustainable. So I think it was built 1994,
Okay.
but just being completely sustainable off grid, and exposed stud work, single skin, just beautiful. And I think while I was up there with the photographer at the time, the clients were saying, yeah, and like solar power and cells at that time weren't particularly great. So like, oh, we can only do our washing if there's been this much sun, and we can only put our jug on for so long. But I loved also how they had considered the material sizes and sheet sizes. So everything, and going back to sort of Japanese architecture and tatami mats and Korb, about human size, there was this really considered idea of minimal waste with building materials. It was, up a hill, really remote site. How do you get it up there? Limited services. And I think that extraordinary discipline of working to a really tight budget, and delivering excellence. But yeah, the considered embodied energy, materials, everything, because I think our profession also can be quite wasteful when we don't consider standard. Well, you can get extraordinary buildings from just doing standardized sheet sizes if you apply a grid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, my ADU is 12 by 20, and it was going to be 12 by 16, but my brother said, oh, can you make it a little bigger, because he was going to build it. But yeah, it is 12 by 20, and I don't want to cut all this stuff. So it's like 12 by 20 will fit with our things as far as 12 feet by 20 feet, because we have 4 by 8 sheets of plywood. We have 8-foot studs, all these other things that are on this 4 by 8 module. So it's like, the 12 by 20 will work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now which house was that?
Oh, it's the Hammond House.
Hammond House. Okay.
Hammond House by Claire Design.
All right. And then you can give me all these wonderful photographs that you
Yes, I'll send you photos, because I think it was interesting about having set up my own practice, because I think my career's been working for the Claires, and then I went and did stadiums and did that for 5 years, and I was doing my own projects on the side, and second child, I was just like, I'm done, because we had no paid maternity leave. So the flexibility, I set up my own practice at that point in time with another female architect from uni, and we ran that practice for 15 years. And it was this wonderful balance of work life when, yes, I did have a husband, but, I was still doing all the running around and working the career in and all of that. And I think we moved at one point in time across Australia to Perth. And I said, I'm only going to do it if I get to work for this amazing architect, which is Kerry Hill, because he was doing all the Armand resorts and at the time, so high-end luxury resorts and housing. And
Oh
I
my
think that was like
gosh.
for me, and that was for me like the pinnacle of I'm done. If I work for Kerry, I'm done. And it was an amazing thing of when I walked in there, he just had won some world, award to make him a star architect. And they were filming, and there was one other female there, but I also walked in, third child, just finished breastfeeding, and that was an interesting experience. But it was this loud Queensland female architect comes into this like serene environment where everyone's wearing black. You got your little soft shoes on, and everyone speaks hush. It's all very hush. I shouldn't, but it was extraordinary because one of the projects they had on in the office at time was doing the Kimono Museum in Japan, on the site being this sacred site that was 2,000-year-old manicured site. And how do you go about placing a building in a manicured landscape? And then looking after a collection of, 3,500 years worth of kimono fabrics. So that was one project which was interesting. And then we were mainly doing the residential.
Did you go to Amangiri? Have you ever been to Amangiri?
No. So
I totally wanted to go there. I would love to go
yes.
there, but I'm probably just going to have lunch there and then like sleep at the state park, or the national park or whatever they have there. But yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, I just love and then Annabelle Seldorf did a house there. Um,
But yeah, it was
Burnett,
like the Sri Lankan. So
Wendell
yeah,
Burnett did a house. Yeah.
so the Singaporean architecture, because he had, the main practice was in Singapore. Kerry had his own house in Sri Lanka. So then you had Jeffrey Bawa sort of influence. And I think I was really lucky while I was there because I got to look after building this house on an island, Hayman Island. And once again, how do you deliver a very expensive house on a remote island? And also that discipline of light, and how we did grids, going back to the Japanese discipline. But yeah, just being so considered about how everything was sort of modular, but not modular. And just relating back to human scale. So I think it was just, such an honour to work in that practice while he was alive, and whilst he was being recognised internationally for his contribution to architecture at large. Yeah. But extraordinary buildings to experience, I think, some of these ones that are so disciplined in getting simplicity. And I think, I can never sort of explain about how hard it is to get to that point of simplicity where you have to keep stripping back and back and back to actually get that result. Versus the other where you just put stuff in, and just embellish and adorn stuff. Like there's an art in curating that too, right? And getting that looking great. But I think that simplicity is incredible. Incredible. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I definitely, I mean, especially now we've got, there's so many, like the palettes are so complicated now. Just like, oh, let's have like 3 different metals. I'm like, what's wrong with one metal? One metal. I said, just what's wrong with only 3 elements? What's wrong with only 3 materials and things? But now there's, I only have this much, but then I like this fixture, I like this fixture, and I'm like, oh, now we've got 6, right?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to 3?
Yeah, and you can't, and that's the thing. You just need the 3 and you can break it down in modules, and it's just about how you use it, in what proportion, and it'd be extraordinary. And it makes you calm. And it's that serenity and calmness. And I think it goes back to the environment is really the artwork in it all. And we're just creating sort of the theatre in which everything occurs in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I typically have like so much going on all the time that I wanted like, okay, let's just keep it calm, right? Like I'm thinking like, okay, the less materials, like the more, wood, just simple color on the walls and and I mean sometimes it's like that's a lot of color to be on that wall in your kid's room.
Yes. Well, yeah, and yeah, you wonder why your child's not calm sometimes. Like there's just too much going on. And I think that's the thing, there is so much going on in kids' lives now, like apart from, the phones and distraction where they can't really focus anymore. There's always something pulling their attention. And I think that importance of having that space that you go back to and relax and turn off is so critical to our own like wellness and health.
Yeah.
Mental
Yeah.
health.
I mean, I am messy. I mean, granted, I am like I have paper all over this thing. I'm trying to do taxes. But yeah, but I mean, it's yeah, I would just like have I don't know. I mean, sometimes you feel like you just want to like leave and have like it's like you're in a home, right now that's kind of the home away from home, right? So it's kind of nice to just go somewhere where there's nothing, there are no distractions of your regular life, right? The reason why people like to go to hotel rooms or
Yes, you leave the tax behind and all. And I think that's running your own business. All that just the overlays. And I think being in sole practice
exactly.
now of like having to be really good with your time management and that practice of running an architecture business and
Mhm.
clients and just keeping food on the table for some of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
For having, I mean, right, I'm working out of the house, right? So it's like the kids will be like, oh, your plans are all over the place. Or one of my friends the other day, oh, I knew you were gonna like take over that room like with some of your plans. I'm like, okay, you work in an office, so you don't, you work for somebody else. You don't have to have any plans, right? It's like you can have a laptop and nothing else, It's like and he's doing project management right now for stuff. It's like, so you can be that way. I said, I have to hold on to these things for 10 years
Mm-hmm.
until I can't get, anyway. But yeah, I mean, you know all the
Oh, yeah,
things
but it is
and
that
people are
working
always, yeah.
family
I
life into raising children and into that.
yeah,
And they're just used
yeah.
to, that slight creative mess that
Yes.
happens
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
frenetic. It's
Yeah.
kinetic,
Yeah.
and it gets
Right,
tidied
because you
up.
have
But yeah,
4 boys.
4
You
boys.
have 4 boys. Yeah.
Yes, and we all talk about you never try and persuade your children ever to do architecture, and of course, and I think you've had this discussion with many of us. And yeah, so my eldest child, who's doing final year at university, is doing urban planning, and very much about the built environment and the importance of wayfinding and all of that. And child number 3, who's doing his final year at high school, wants to be an architect. I did my darnest to like, no, do not do it, and of course, they've been curated from an early age of like, this is how you get good proportions. Look at this. You stand over here. This is what you see. The breeze, open
Yeah.
up, how to naturally ventilate a space. Like, of course, they've got no hope. But
Or
it
at
is,
least
I
they
think,
know way
marvelous.
more. They know way more than a lot of the other people that they're around, where they're like talking or like, oh, it's like my sons when they were at Taliesin West and everybody, was there and they were like, oh, it's like, oh, isn't this great that, that your mom brought you to Taliesin West? And they're both like, yeah, we
Mm.
were already here before.
Yeah, we've been here many times.
Yeah, we've been here.
And
We've
that's
been.
it. Yeah.
Was
But I think it
it?
is also part of that is having children and dragging their friends into our lives. And we've actually exposed um, these unprepared souls for what we do. And I think that's been great that we do, in a way, publicly advocate for what we do. And I remember one child coming over to my house once and going, oh, my God, how does this place hold up? Like, where are all the posts? Where are all the walls? Because there's like big open space and a glass. He was frightened to walk in the front door. And you're like, no, this has been engineered. But that whole perception of like, oh, you can have an open plan because he'd lived in a traditional house, and also then
Mhm.
questioning, you know, different ways of living. So, yeah. It is
Yeah.
good. And I guess that's what's very important about public institutions, right? So I think that first question you asked me about, what's my first exposure to architecture? And a lot of people's first exposure possibly to architecture is through their schools and like well-designed schools. And then also, the museums and art galleries that we possibly, some of us drag our children through. And then other ones are sports stadiums. And they're sort of brutal in themselves, but some of them quite well considered. But no, it is about that public infrastructure that is possibly, and airports, what people are exposed to. Not everyone, the privileged people, but education is certainly the base of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't say, what do you like about being an architect? Did I ask you that?
No. What do I like? I think having done houses for so many years, and having repeat clients, I think I have this very privileged experience in life of changing how they enjoy life. And I think that, and I love that they come back at different stages. And I've been part of part of their family. It's not like you're a doctor, but they know that you know everything about how they live. One client in particular, I remember, I think I rocked up there pregnant with the first child 20 years ago, and they only had small kids. And then I came back again. The kids had got older, like 18, 20, and living at home, and about how do you appropriate that house. And we'd done the master plan about this back, way back then. And it's like, yep, we're implementing that. And then the kids grew up, 30, finally moved out of the house. And then they came to me to do their sort of the downsize connect to nature house. And I went, this is amazing. Like, you don't get that unless you've been in private practice or, and you can go do the big commercial projects. But I think, and I think having done sports stadiums and I can say, yes, I was responsible for making sure there were handbag hooks in there, or, you could see the balls, or, there's all those amazing things that those buildings deliver versus a house where people say, oh, I love sitting in that window in winter, or, the shower you did with the light, that's amazing. But I think when they come back repeatedly, that's quite a magical thing. So I love that.
No, if you have clients that will repeatedly come back and can even afford, right? Can even afford to have a house built. I worked for Mark Appleton. I mean, he's had repeat clients come back like, oh, we want this huge house and we want another one. It's like, yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, probably the most impactful project I've ever done, is actually this big art installation, which it was poppies, and it was for the centenary of the armistice for, World War II. And I had been commissioned to they commissioned me to do an installation across from where a memorial is, the Eternal Flame. And I said, well, I'm not going to do, as the architect, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to engage people. And I think this leads into why I do kids stuff too, because it's all about that education of things. So I researched the story about the red poppy because, red poppies are sold on Remembrance Day and so forth to raise money to go to veterans and their families. But the first poppies, and I found this really fascinating because I think it is coming back to cultural heritage and stories. The first poppies were actually made by children, made orphans of war in France. They sold the poppies for children of war. Then I think in 1912 you had the Royal Legion in the UK. A man came in and decided, yes, we're going to make more money and make more red poppies and sell them for veterans of war. And then they sort of integrated that it might go to families. But it basically, I love the story of going back to that original thing, that it was children and about displaced children of war. The other thing was then finding out there were white poppies. White poppies were about peace and also about the women who led the movement of creating peace and their impactful part at home. And then the purple poppy being about the service animals. So from doing this small installation, which I was paid to do in Brisbane, Australia, the Anzac Fellow of the Year, which is Anzac is our Australian and New Zealand word for our soldiers. So come to France. we're going to do the opening for the world first war memorial for service animals. And we're going to have representatives from all around the world, and we want you there. Bring your poppies, because they were windmills, right? So what my poppies were, I had created a windmill. So we engaged over 600 children to make these. The children wrote their messages of hope on the poppies, and then we put them on a net. So they spun. So it was like a kinetic installation. But I love that it was messages of hope. So I took these poppies in garbage bags on a plane to France, and then into Pozieres, where a lot of Australian soldiers were killed. And there's many, many more. And I don't know the number of soldiers that were killed in that field. And I don't know if you've ever been to the sites of World War I and II, but it's quite horrific because it's
No, I haven't. No.
Such a small area, landscape, hilly, and then that they were doing sort of, warfare of old school warfare versus aerial warfare, and just poor communication, and lives were lost for no reason, apart from defending things. Anyway, so it was extraordinary from this whole thing of putting the poppies up on this site in Pozieres, which was coincidentally called the windmill site. It started this movement around the world, and from that day, which was 30 people there, we got an international day for service animals. And extraordinary about that power of people. I then came back here to Australia and got a big federal grant to do a bigger installation, which was then we had 4,000 poppies, and it was like 40 metres long by 10 metres. We hung it over these big prominent cliffs in Brisbane in 2018. And that sort of engaged more school children, obviously, and was up for 5 weeks. But the controversy around the white poppy was extraordinary. So when I went to France, they didn't want the white poppy because they thought the white poppy was about the white feather. In Australia, the white poppy then got appropriated to representing the medical profession. So I think from it all, and it made national news. So I think, architecture's got a thing in the houses that are for a specific thing, but I love that this whole project engaged and spoke to so many people because it was about such an important topic 100 years on, and the importance and power of people.
Yeah.
And legacy building too. And how art, and I guess architecture is art, really does impact and can hold a story. And it means something to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that project had its momentum of its own, and it's probably been the most far-reaching, impactful thing that was temporary. So the other thing, it's a temporary thing, right? It's not like a building that stays and engages the people on a constant thing. This was a one-off thing, and it just started a lot of discussions and debate.
Yeah. It's your Cristo.
Well, where do you go from that, right? Like, it's sort of like, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Here it's it's only your half-life. Half-life.
Yeah, I know. Coming up to 50. Yeah, I've got so many years. Don't we die at the drawing board?
You're talking about the woman that's 88, and I was like, oh my gosh, 88.
Oh yeah.
My mother did say, my mother said something to me. I said, oh yeah. I said, well, I'm getting licensed in Arizona, and my mom said, oh yeah, well that's true because you're gonna be working till you're 80, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
working until I'm 80.
I guess we're sort of lucky in a way, but I do know what I do is sort of unsustainable. Like, I am truly living the pure architect life of doing the drawing and, doing the conceptual to on site. And I think I'm once again really, really grateful and happy that I'm able to do that and can deliver the traditional role of what an architect does, because a lot of people don't get to do what I do. And I love I love when I go to site, and I love when I get to talk to the trades and about how they would do stuff. And you can detail things, but it's so important about that process of co-design and collaboration and understanding. It's sort of like telling them their intent of what you want, and working with people within their skill sets about delivering something that works. And I think that process of the making from the actual drawing, but understanding how things are put together and how things come together on site is so crucial to what we do. And I think is a bit lost when you can sit behind a computer and don't understand how things are, and how services are integrated. And just that the mechanics of working with people on site and getting things delivered on time and understanding that process of construction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was just explaining, the thing. And it's funny because I think that people so often do not know that they don't know that we're actually doing construction observation, that we are at the thing, that we know how things are built. They just kind of think, oh, they got, they did the plans or something and then they're gone or whatever. And I'm going through, today I had, a pre-construction meeting and I'm going over with the clients things and I'm going, over with the contractor and then they're asking questions. And of course, it's like I'm answering the questions that are kind of that I think they felt it was more of like a contractor question, right? As far as, like, oh, well, as far as like how, what happens first, right? Oh, are we going to have to do this? Are we going to have to do this? It's like, well, what's the first inspection? All of these things. And then, I'm like, well, of course we know how a building goes. I mean, right. It kind of, I think people still kind of think that maybe we don't know. And there are architects that don't know, right? That don't know because they're not involved. If you're at a bigger firm and maybe you only have like your niche thing of what you're doing every day, you don't know the whole process. You don't see the whole process. And that's kind of why I've always liked working for a smaller firm because I get bored easily. I'll flat out say I'm like bored easily. I don't care if I would have made like, millions or something working for a big firm. It's just like, I'd rather work for a small firm and kind of have like more of a hands-on thing where, and I'm not good with the whole competition thing in a big firm. It's like, I don't, for me,
the
I think that
corporate
would be, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's sort of why I also sort of got out of the stadium land, because I just couldn't see the purpose of the corporate, weighing way up and the politics within it, and what was the benefit to me, and I think too, I as a female in the industry at that time, we work so hard, and I knew that people around me were getting paid more than me, like substantially more than me. And, not doing great work, but it's sort of like you expected to be sort of patted on the back. And it has been, and I think too, going to site, we have to work so much harder to prove, because some people have that perception because you're female that you don't quite get how things are built. And then I can't tell you how many times I've had to say I grew up on, like, I've sort of started saying that I grew up on a farm, but it's sort of like, I had a grandfather who was an engineer. I was in the workshop. We made furniture together. Like, I do understand it. And it's quite demeaning, I think. You do run into them every now and then.
I mean, and the thing is, I think, I mean, a lot of younger women, they don't realize that like people would ever say anything to you. And I was like, kind of, I was like talking to, I was interviewing another person and I said, and I mean, she had been presenting for AIA CRAN. And then she thanked me afterwards. She said, thank you for helping to pave the way, is what she said. Because I was talking to a bunch of other, we said, oh yeah, we were all in LA in the 90s, we were all working for different firms and everything, but we were all women like working in the 90s. And then we've gone on to, to have some presence or whatever. But I mean, I think that a lot has moved forward, but there's still a lot of things that I hear people talk about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are you serious? Like, it's so good. I mean, I was like saying, I want to do like I'm in I won't say what organization it is, but anyway, I'm kind of in charge of the education for it. And I said, okay, we want to have I want to do 3 women architects at different stages of their careers. And it's like I was getting, it's like I will get this pushback from people saying, well, it's like I have like, oh, well, I have women working in my firm. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not a woman-owned firm. It's like, of course you have women working in your firm, but it's not a woman-owned firm. And so they're saying, well, why does it have to be a woman-owned firm if I have women working in the firm? And I'm like, well, it's just different. And I said, and women are asking, how do we start our firms? Right? We're moms, we have our kids. How do we start our firms? It's like we're not happy in the workplace. We're not happy with the way we're being treated. We're not happy with, other people getting ahead of us because we as moms or whatever are taking, are doing most of the childcare still, we're still doing most of the childcare, taking care of the kids. I mean, right. My ex was, my late ex was also an architect, right? Working 60 hours a week. So it's like, I wasn't working 60 hours a week because we had the 3 kids and, that's fine. I mean, I said that I was going to do that, but there are many other women, right, that can't. And the person had kind of said, oh, well, why, I mean, I think there's this thing of like, oh, well, why did you want to start your own firm? And it's like the reason why most of us start our own firms is because we're not getting what we want from a bigger firm. That's the reason why we're doing it, or we're asking for it and we're getting pushback about that stuff. And that's the reason why, why women start their own firm. I mean, not the only reason, but one of the big reasons, more control of, of our role in the practice, more control.
How we
over
use
that.
our time. Yeah, how we use our time. Because I think it's like one of the things when I did go back, when I worked for Kerry Hill, is like I would work 3 days, but because of our passion, and I think a bit of mother guilt, you used to work like really, really, really hard in those 3 days. So you were basically doing a 5-day week in a 3 and then on call. So you never turned off, right? Because you still, there was that point, mother guilt and loving what you do. I think one of the most valuable things I learned later in life is that, yes, we've got a really important thing, but those deadlines that commercial practices used to put in were unrealistic, some of them. And just, I think, having control of your own time frame about when you are well planned, you can deliver it and don't need to work the long, long hours of repetitive stuff that is not necessary. So, the culture of what we do is needing a bit of change, always changing.
Yeah. And the price of childcare, right? I mean, a lot of us, when we were first getting out of architecture school, in LA, there were some people, I mean, I was getting paid more, but there were people that were getting paid by the Starchitects for like $5 an hour. They're going to $5 an hour. I was making $12 an hour and I was a consultant in quotations, right? And it, I mean, it's like I wouldn't have been able to make $12 an hour. Even I think maybe it was $15 an hour before I quit to have, right before I quit to have my daughter. And then I didn't go back to that place. Right. But I was like, well, why would I be working for somebody for $12 to $15 an hour when I could be making more money on my own, having my own firm, working for less time? Less hours per week, making the same amount. Less hours per week, making more money, and it's like, and then I'm going to have to pay for child, it's like, I would do the work when they were asleep and stuff like that. And I know some people, and then I would get a babysitter for a couple of days a week. And I had, a family member watch my first for one day a week, but they were very unreliable. But, I mean, it's the cost of childcare, versus, it's like if you're working just to pay for childcare, I mean, that's not going to.
Well, I remember that was exactly like, because the cost of childcare has gone through the roof now, and proportionally in cost of living. And about the rate that young architects get paid. So, and I think they're professional about fees and all kinds of things. But I do remember working quite late at night, like the kids are down, but those kids had really good routines. Like it was like, yep, you're out, fed, bathed, sleep time. like story time, sleep time, 7:00, and I was in front of the computer. And sometimes, you'd work till 1:00, 3:00 in the morning to get something done because that's all you had. But you were really effective with your time.
And it was quiet, right? So you could focus because it was quiet. It was quiet. You could like focus on things. I mean, I was until 3 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, I still do silly hours too, and mine are all, and yours are older. Like I think it is that peaceful time where we need concentrated hours to deliver stuff. And there's certain things, especially when you're doing things on site, you get disrupted because it's like instant things you've got to answer. But to actually get the drawing and the design done, we need to lock ourselves away into like these little silent moments where we can't be touched. To do the magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Our creative time. We need our focused creative time in our creative spaces.
Yes, we do.
So what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
So it is really intriguing, and I think being part of the International Union of Architects and the Children Work program, and about built environment education. So, in the business world, in the entrepreneur women world and all that, they all talk about the future of AI, and we all talk about what that's going to do to revolutionize our profession. And if you don't jump on board, you're going to lose, right? And what that may do in influencing how we may look at designs and so forth, and chat GPT and what that does, which is great, and all the critical thinking. But I think what I'm enjoyed seeing is on a international level, seeing the different levels of the built environment education, because the children are our future and they will shape the future for us. So it's important they understand the environment. And I think with the climate change and all of that, and extraordinary, like being in the States also, and seeing, I think when I last year when I was in New York, the 5 lakes hadn't frozen over, it was 10%. But watching the cloud patterns and how all that water came down, and you were getting all like it's changing. And I think when I was in Palm Springs, there was a cyclone, I think you call them typhoons, that had come across the Pacific from Papua New Guinea, gone across the equator, and then tracked up Mexico, which was a very different air shift. And then that air then went straight up through your west coast up towards Canada, but then went across back to the 5 lakes. And I think it's, and as architects, we do observe the weather and the environment. But coming back to the future and about children, it's important about that they do understand that implication of built environment and how we all deal with sealed buildings now, and whether it's appropriate or not, and about those overlayers of legislation around it. I think there's this sort of mismatch between legislation and what is perceived to be sustainable design versus actually coming back to the basics of what shelter is.
What does it mean when you say a sealed building? Because I think I know what you're kind of talking about, highly insulated.
Well, I know from you, like the detailer, that things don't leak, and the UK have got huge things about leaky buildings. In Australia, we are just getting legislation put in about having a sealed building, and like the use of mechanical, the passive house, but mechanical use, the reliance also on mechanical ventilation. And our country has got so many, as does the US, so many different climatic controls, right? And how can you effectively apply one bit of red tape legislation to things? And what I'm so worried about is this whole thing, capitalism and the reliance on energy and power, and that we're depleting our resources, but people aren't taught to naturally ventilate, and that plants are probably important things of filtering air. But it's quite concerning, I think, about government overlays, about where we're headed in the future, about toxic environments, but also what the toxic environment is internally within houses. But that whole dislocation, I think it also goes down to food production too, dislocation of understanding the basics of food, shelter, and where they come from. Because as soon as you put people in a little air-conditioned box, they don't care what's on outside. You've got energy coming and solar, like, why not? I'll just keep myself in my little perfect box. And
I don't know.
I know.
For one of my projects, we were going to put solar on, and she was like, oh, but my client, she didn't want, I think because they were less expensive, like fixed windows as opposed to operable windows. And I said, well, we can't, thank God, we can't like have only fixed windows because of the light and ventilation. The ventilation requirement is a building code issue. And she said, well, I don't really care because we're putting solar on the house, so I'm just going to crank up the air conditioning. I'm like, okay, that's
Exactly.
not really what it was intended for. But I said, let's open. It's like you guys, you have a you're on the water. It's like you're not really going to have to use your air conditioning that much. I mean, I don't say it's like we have no heater AC right now in our house. And we have the old wood windows that are operable. I have French doors that I can open up. And so we just open, and I mean, of course, the addition has a lot of insulation. The existing house doesn't have that much insulation, but because of our, but it's like people are kind of used to living at like 60 degrees. I mean, like 60 degrees is pretty cold in my eyes. 60 degrees is pretty cold. I mean, we used to keep during the summer, right? Like they want it to be 60 degrees, like the AC is set for 60 degrees. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like, you could easily set it for 75 and 80 because we're going to have to start getting used to that because it's going to be warmer.
It's a lack of resilience.
Yeah.
But I think, being part of the international conversation now with the different countries talking about how architects and how built environment is valued in their countries and the difference. So I love, like, Australia's got I think a fair way to go, to be honest. I think America does it well in the understanding of community driven architecture. Like there's a fellow in Malaysia and he got on and he goes, I run my own TV show here and it's all about children and built environment and a quiz show. And I went, wow. And it's that whole thing about, and America and Australia are similar in, you immigrants, we've come from a landed gentry background and very similar and in the different ways that government have moved forward and maybe Australia hasn't in some regards as well. But our buildings aren't as old as in Europe. And then you've got places like Malaysia and Vietnam that had French, before our countries were thing, and how they actually take that into the cultural heritage and the storyline. And it's valued, like it is truly valued there. And I love that those other countries have an AR in front. We have the doctor, the DR, like over there they have AR as a thing. It's a respected profession. And yes, it is respected in different things, but there's a different balance in that respective built environment in different countries that we all can work on. And I think that does come down to the education in our school systems and about children. And I think coming back to that question about where our first sort of experience might be of architecture is probably in schools. And I think it's important that kids are being taught those things about ventilation, how to use your windows correctly, and the importance of plants and spaces. So, if we don't get that right, what is our future going to be like? We can have AI do all of this for us. But I think architecture also does a beautiful thing of critical thinking, creative stuff that we will never be replaced with. So we can layer in all these things of AI that gives us options. But we've still got to
you
have
also
that
have to be able to feed them. You have to be able to feed it with terms that are going to produce that. And so that's why, right? I think that, that's why I was asking somebody, I don't know, a couple podcasts ago or whatever. I said, well, what if somebody doesn't know anything about architecture and they're just, right, they're just feeding it in there is what are, as opposed to like an architect, right, feeding? Because I've seen my friends online, they're like, oh, and it's like this great design, and I'm like, oh, and I said, well, is everybody getting that? Because, you're feeding in like glazing and things like that.
I know.
Like,
So
yeah,
I got
Western
sent something.
exposure and stuff.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
some friend
yeah.
sent me this amazing, like, AI generated architecture thing. And I just looked at it and went, there are no gutters. Like, we have to deal with, like, I go rain. But it's like, where's the water going? Because that's our worst enemy is water in buildings. And I just went, that place is like, because you look at it as the architect, how are you going to build it? Like I said, that's not going to work, but it looks pretty. It looks really pretty.
Right.
But yeah,
Just
it
like all
is.
the women, right? They like put in the thing, and all of a sudden they produce like this woman that's this beautiful woman, and it's like, oh, okay, well, but it's like just yeah. I mean, does she look like? They look animated, right? Because they are so perfect. So like,
Yeah,
it's.
aesthetically
I think that
pleasing.
they tend to look like an animated figure because it's kind of with it. Um, I think there's a city building program that Frank Gary's sister came up with when she was working at UCLA, because she's actually an educator. And so when I would go into the classroom with my kids, and then also as a uh I was president and a member of like an arts organization that's underneath the nonprofit of the city of La Mesa, the city that I live in. And we would kind of do these city building workshops for the kids, just to like lay out, I would do like a huge map of the city, but I wouldn't tell them that it was actually their city or their area, right? And you kind of just say, come up with a city that you've never thought of, or come up with a city with things that you want in it, right? And never before seen buildings, and they could use it, and we would use the trash, right, recycled objects, and so they would like be building all of these things on this, and of course they're coming up with ideas of never before seen, and because they're so young, they don't have a lot of preconceived ideas of what things should look like. So and I mean, some of my kids' friends have like seen, they're like, oh, we're so, oh, we remember when you used to come into the classroom and like do the city building where or art docent, workshops with us. And I was like, oh, that's great. I mean, you don't think that you're making you don't think that you're making any type of impact, but I mean, it's those small things that you
It is
end up,
small.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I ran one of the workshops I ran was white Lego. I got Lego to sponsor, and I think they gave me 20,000 pieces of white Lego. And having done all like childhood sort of workshops on the side, it's on the side, these things, while you're doing your other things. The kids, I'd learnt that to the age of 8. Kids are free thinkers, right? And from that age, and all the kids under 8 did these really creative things that were buildings and could talk about it all. As soon as you turned over 8, the kids started doing high rises. And it became this really formulated, because all those rigid things that they'd been taught in the schools is about this is how buildings look, right? And then beyond that, if you didn't have the foundations of critically thinking about things, people just went off on these pathways. So I think it's really interesting that even universities now are starting to do interdisciplinary courses to get people out of silos, just to segue off that. But it is interesting about, how education, again, does block and puts these blinkers on people about what they can do. Vietnam did this great thing of a city building with children, and it won the UNICEF World Prize and the UN, like just about how do you engage children in city building and their thing, because they come in a different, and it covers so many things about inclusivity as well, like disabilities and people with prams. Yeah, connectivity, shade. How do you use landscape, and how does landscape become play elements, and how these spaces become more exciting than they are? I think one of the great things when I came to America, I went to the Smithsonian Institute in New York, and they had this amazing exhibition about how to design peace. And it was covering topics of, like, instead of doing war memorials, you do peace buildings. It also showed
That makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah. But the wall of Trump, and about the seesaw, about those interactive things. There was bangs, the importance of graphic designers, and about teaching people that if they can't read, that they can actually go vote. and showing that you can beat corruption just through graphic symbols. They also had the topic of exploration of Mars and settlement of Mars and what that would look like and what that does about whether that was a mineral-based thing. So I really like that. And they sort of had these cards about how do you go away and about being an active citizen, and I think architects are active citizens about we promote stuff. So I love that, every architect is a leader in their community and, people should know who their architect is. And we need to be, I think, a little bit more approachable sometimes in that. But
yeah. We're not and kind of more vocal, right? Like,
yes.
People don't know, right? They're like, oh, really? You're an architect? I didn't know that. Or like, it's like, and like what we like, oh, you draw buildings. No, it's more than that.
But we do community buildings, right? We bring
and the exterior.
Yeah, but I guess you can look at buildings as forms of peace. You bring people together and as groups, and we facilitate connections, and that's quite a powerful thing beyond the poetry of everything. But I love that yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, hopefully we can have some of the links to some of these things and photos of all of these projects.
Yes, I'll send them through for you. Your blog.
And then
definitely.
Yeah, and that'll be in the blog. Yeah, that'll be in the blog. So, people that are listening, I also have the blog so you can see all of the photos, you can get the links to people's the different projects that they're talking about, their classic buildings and everything. And it'll give you a lot of visuals and I guess I should take a photo. Here we go.
Hi.
Hi. 1, 2, 3. So it was great. It was great talking. I'm so glad. Now it's the middle of the day?
Yeah, it's coming up to 1:30 p.m. So it's and what time's it there for you?
7:30.
At least we didn't do a midnight meeting, Don't need you staying up to 3 a.m. for me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, one of my kids just said, he goes, were you up past midnight? And I'm like, yeah, I was up till 3 a.m. That is.
But it's so exciting when you get yourself on a little world clock about, I've got to check what time it's in Paris, or I've got to check this, like beyond what time do I have to get the kids to school or pick up from a sporting activity? Like, Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think when I interviewed Mark Dixon, he's in Melbourne. I think he was early in the morning, and I was like 3, right? If I'm 3 in the afternoon, then what time would it be there? I think I was.
I had at 6 or 9 p.m. So I always add on 6 hours to your time, and then we're the day ahead. We're in the future here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We like to think we're in the future.
You are in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I'll get over there someday. I don't know when. Maybe when I'm 88.
Yeah. Well, meet the living legend of Louise Cox. But and then see the Opera House, because it's had its renovation done. It's incredible with the brutalism of putting some lifts in instead of the big stairs to access the concert halls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was what was the big issue. It was shut for I think 5 years, and then it had its 50th birthday last year. Graceful lady.
So there were no ramps. There were no ramps.
No ramps.
Did you guys have
no ramps? So it's built out on that sort of made for platform, and there's stairs. There's a big stairs that go up to it, and then you go in and you have to go up more stairs. Yeah. And the only other way is underneath, and there were lifts that sort of got you up to sort of a section, but beyond that, no. So really, that was one of the things in the bad acoustics. So they redid the main concert hall too, and it's just brilliant. But they've put this vibrant, regal purple carpet through the back. And the interesting thing too, even though locals, and it's one of the most visited buildings in Australia because it's iconic, probably the world, no one knows. Well, most people don't know that you just go around the side when you walk into the concert hall. If you go around the side, that's all the terraces out the back, and there's multi-level, like in any theatre. No, so I went there for a performance just recently. An hour went by, and I'm like, where are all the people? Where are the 400 people? They're all like crammed out in the front. And I'm like, I had this immense view of the harbour bridge, cruises that, ships are coming back in. It's just ridiculous, some of the heights of those. But I just went, why do people, once again, if you had proper light, maybe people may find their way around, or signage. But I had to go down a secret passageway to get to the back. But yeah, no, it was extraordinary. You can go to these buildings and not see the actual inner workings of them unless, you have that little nosy, a bit of curiosity that takes us around, which architects are. We're always curious.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
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 But yes, you've got to come and see the Opera House, since such an iconic building of the world. Beyond the friendly Australians. We're very friendly.
Oh no, I went to school. I went to school with Australians in Denmark. So that's yeah. So they're in Melbourne. That Mark Dixon and
Yes.
Peter Gianfredo, and then oh my gosh, I forget what a couple of the women's names were. In the long jackets.
Oh. Looking
Yeah.
very Melbourne. Yes.
The Outback jacket. Yeah, Outback jacket.
No
do
Crocodile
they still wear
Dundee
those anymore or not?
Oh yeah, there are they call them the Dreiser Bone coat. Yeah, there are some very interesting characters here, as there are in the United States. So they like to, characters everywhere. You have to have your signature, don't you? And whether it's your signature glasses. We're missing glasses, right?
This was also in the 80s. It was also in the 80s. So yeah. So it was, yeah. So then that's how you would know where people were from, right? Because back then you could tell from what people were wearing, because the internet didn't tell you what everybody, right? So if you had a Falpakken, right, you were from Denmark, right? If everybody had those, yeah. If you had an Outback jacket on, you were from Australia. It's like.
Oh, and the Germans, you could spot a German a mile away. Yeah.
Yes. If you wore white tennis shoes, you were American, right? Americans would always wear tennis shoes everywhere, or white tennis shoes. So, yeah. And we're loud.
Yeah. And look at us now. We're just,
I know. Now we're all this amalgamation of the internet.
Yeah. It's extraordinary. Yeah, don't need to sit on the couch watching the TV to travel anymore.
Yeah,
we'll be teleporting soon, and I think that's the whole next thing, isn't it?
No. Like in Star Trek.
No, the lift in your house will become the teleporter. If you can afford a lift, right? So if you can't afford the lift, you're not going to teleport. Sorry, just getting silly.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks. I'm so glad that I met you last year. I mean, that was a great time. We met like so many people in like a short amount of time. Like, I don't think I've ever gone there. I met people that I wasn't with, right? It's like we were kind of able to, we were able to like talk to like people that we weren't, Eve and I were there. As we've gone like before, but it was great to meet, you and Scott and, Gracie, the person that owns the place. And yeah.
But I think that's an extraordinary story. But yeah, Modernism Week does such an extraordinary thing for design. And I think, getting to the Lautner building has been a highlight, I think, in my life. It was an extraordinary space, and to see that. So it was, I think very lovely to meet you too. So it's been just marvellous to have the chat and talk about all things architecture and life, and being a female in what we do, and families and everything. So, watch out to wear like 80, 90, be like fierce ladies.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop the tape there. Oh, and thank you to Plungy Pools, the concrete cast pools from Australia. Thank you so much. for sponsoring the podcast.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Plungy.
Thank you, Munchie.